And welcome back to the Daily Wrap, everybody. It's time for some potluck. This is my favorite part of the show, where everybody brings a story to the party, just like bringing a dish to a potluck dinner. Ooh, Heather, what'd you cook up?
There's a story in the New York Times that I found fascinating about a PR exec who blew up her life by sending a tweet. She was in Heathrow Airport flying to Africa, sent a tweet about getting AIDS, inappropriate tweet. By the time that she landed, she was trending. She was the #1 trender in Twitter across the world. She then lost her job. She had a difficult time finding a new job. And the article talks about shaming and shaming on Twitter and shaming in social media, and sort of compares it to back in the day when we would publicly shame people as punishment, shame adulterers, shame people who were committing robbery.
Let's read the graphic while it's up there, excuse me, the tweet. This is Justine Sacco, and this was in December, I believe. Yeah, there it is, December 20th of 2013. She says, "Going to Africa, hope I don't get AIDS, just kidding, I'm white." And as you said, she wrote that right before the plane took off, and by the time she landed in Africa, her life was over.
Joe, it was amazing, because at the time I was on Twitter, and so they were actually like tracking her where she was.
Like Santa's sleigh?
Yes, exactly, and it was right around that time. It was December.
Really?
And then somebody actually did meet her at the airport and took pictures of her. You know, she's now landed, and her life had completely changed. But when the comparison to shaming, I thought was interesting, because she had been publicly shamed, but also maybe not that good of an analogy, because she put herself out there to be shamed. You know, when you're committing adultery or robbery, it's something that's secret. When you're putting it out there, it's more like producing a movie or doing this, where you are looking to be panned. You're looking, and it's more like being reviewed, right?
Kelly, ever send out a tweet that you regret?
Oh, no, you know, actually, I just joined Twitter.
Really?
Yes.
How long ago?
At Dr. Kelly Powers. Figured I'd plug that in. Yeah, so I'm very new to this whole Twitter thing. So yeah, I'm learning right now. So this is good. This is good for me. But you have to be really careful about what you say, because it's out there forever.
Why'd you wait so long?
Why do you wait so long? Yeah. I don't know. There's so many. I feel like I turn on my phone, there's so many to check, right?
That's true.
I have a lot of apps to check. It's Facebook, Instagram, now another one. So
how many followers you got in your
I'm
rookie
getting
debut?
up there. You know, just for about 2 weeks now. I think about 1,000.
You probably gained a good.
We're getting there. Maybe a little more tonight.
That's good.
Yeah, you got 9,000 after this show.
Oh, of course.
Right.
Easily.
Rick, yourself, you have a...
She shamed herself. I mean, that's really how I view it. And you raised the distinction. If you do something in private and somebody shames you, that's one thing. That tweet was wrong on so many levels that she just begged for that to happen.
I think it was tongue-in-cheek. I agree with you. It was poorly worded, poorly thought out.
You can't do tongue-in-cheek on Twitter.
Well, that's the problem. And especially when you're in PR, I think people take a little bit more pleasure in sort of bringing you down. But why do we take such pleasure in bringing people down is what the point of this article is. And
that's the most ironic part about this, that her job is to teach people how to handle themselves in the public eye, and then this happens.
And that's why I think people took such joy in bringing her down. You know, she's bounced back. The article is fascinating. I really found it really interesting.
Oh, where is she now? What's she doing?
She's got another job, and she really wanted to take a step away from all this and not talk a whole lot about it now that she has this new job. But for a while, I mean, she went to Ethiopia. She really tried to reinvent herself, but ultimately wanted to be here in New York, and definitely has learned a lesson.
I'm
but
sure.
she's not the only one. There's
her
others.
life didn't end. Her job ended.
Okay,
Yeah.
But I mean, when you say she went to a different job, does that mean when I go see 50 Shades tonight, is she going to be collecting my ticket?
No,
giving me the
I think
popcorn?
it's
What's a different job?
I think it's another job in PR.
Okay,
I think
good.
It's another
Just
job
very
in PR.
much low profile.
And very much trying to step away from all this.
Okay,
Probably
you
not
serve it up
loving that
tonight.
we're talking about it.
Me? I'm up. So a new poll out this week suggesting that 37% of the American public is afraid that we're heading for Sharia law. What do they base this on? They base this on a one what's the name that, not a church, but what do they call?
Mosque?
Mosque, thank you.
Yeah.
It just flew out of my brain. One mosque in Texas is now settling disputes between members of the mosque using Sharia law. And based on that, 37% of Americans are terrified we're going to have Sharia law. I got a news flash for everybody. Number one, Syrian Jews have been solving their problems that way for a very long time. If you watch The Good Wife, they actually had an episode where a minister was called upon to settle a dispute. It's called arbitration, people. It doesn't mean we're going to have Sharia law. I didn't take Sharia law 101 in law school. It wasn't offered. Don't be stupid.
Yeah, but the problem was in 2010, a New Jersey judge filed a case and based it on Sharia law.
We
It was
had one
overturned.
wacko in
no,
an
I
entire
understand,
nation.
but that feeds this understanding, and it is a problem. I mean, when it is wrong. You're right, Rick. It is wrong. But when you have one judge who makes a bad decision, people who want to believe this find a way to believe it.
But they're foolish.
Well, I agree. And then when Chris Christie nominates someone to Superior Court who is a Muslim,
Good for
who
him.
ends up wonderful, Judge Muhammad
Great
is
judge, right?
Absolutely. But there was a lot of kickback on that because people are afraid. I mean, it's fear.
But that's not defensible. People have to be a bit more clever than that. I'm sorry.
Well, it's fear of the
Agree?
unknown.
Agreed.
Agree.
It's fear of the unknown. People need to learn a little bit more about what it actually is and what arbitrations are, and the fact that they happen throughout the religions and throughout our system.
Listen, arbitration is such a good thing.
Yeah,
It's
we
so
like
much
it.
cheaper than going to court. I think it's a great idea.
You know what else is a good thing? That we have advertisers, and we have to get to them right now because we have to pay our bills. Coming up next, more Potluck. This is the Daily Wrap, only on Newsmax TV. And welcome back to the show, everybody, on this Friday night in New York City. Right now, we are talking about our favorite stories of the day. Dr. Kelly Powers, what did you cook up?
All right, so today, let's talk about vaccines again. Yes, it's back. Not so much the debate of vaccines, but how the media is, or I should say the liberal media, is making it a very partisan issue.
Before you could continue,
Yeah.
because you said not so much about the debate, is the debate closed in your mind?
Well, no, I don't think it's closed. Not at all. Not if you turn on Twitter or any of the others, right?
No, I mean
It's-
from your personal
as
opinion
a
as a
doctor.
doctor.
as a
As a doctor.
So I believe that government should have minimal involvement in our lives, but public safety is not one of them. So I am for vaccines. I believe in vaccines, especially against the immunocompromised and those that can't defend themselves. So yes, I'm a supporter of vaccines. On the record,
just wanna
saying
get you on
that.
the record.
Oh yeah,
Good,
on the
good,
record
good.
saying that. So what I want to talk about tonight is how the liberal media is trying to make this a partisan issue, and this is so disturbing to me. So I was watching a clip with Joy Behar from The View, and she was saying how, this is definitely a conservative Republican issue. They're anti-vaccine, and saying everything else she had to say about it. But then when you look at the statistics, you're looking at the counties that have the most unvaccinated children. What is it? Marin County in California,
Right.
north of San
Right.
Francisco, and parts of LA County as well. And then you've got this movement with the Robert Kennedy Jr. movement and the Jenny McCarthy and her followers, right? Another View person. It's talking about just how they're the ones that are anti-vaccine, and they kind of started this whole revolution, and somehow it's getting pins back over to the right, and I don't see where that's
Chris
how that
Christie and
happened.
Rand Paul as well.
Yeah, and
Right,
it's interesting,
yeah.
when I knew this was going to be the potluck, I looked up and there happened to be a Fox poll on this exact topic.
Yeah.
And it said that 30% of Democrats and 32% of Republicans thought that vaccines were unsafe. Same numbers.
Yeah.
The Tea Party was a little bit more, I think it was 34%.
Okay.
But only 39% aren't going to vaccinate their kids. So ultimately, I think it's a minority. It may be a vocal minority and it may be a large minority. But I think most people agree that although there are concerns about vaccinations, and do you agree with that as well?
Those studies have been debunked at this point. Once upon a time there was a concern for all of us, and I even thought about that. It crossed my mind. I read the studies, but all of those studies have been debunked by private institutions, by the government-funded research, all of it. None of them prove, epidemiological studies, none of them prove that there's a correlation.
So Rick, how's this blue-red issue?
I don't think it is. I'm going to actually disagree. You're right in what you pointed out. Yes, Joy Behar did do that.
Yeah.
And some of the people you've heard speak out are not conservatives. They are liberals.
Right.
It's not a liberal conservative issue. It's
Great.
not the conservative media that's made it a problem. It's not the liberal media. It's a few people. And you're absolutely right when you point out that Marin and LA are the worst offenders. So it's not that. I think what happened was you had two important people in the Republican Party say some things that put people off on it. It's not political. I don't care what politicians have to say about this. I care what pediatricians have
Right,
to say
of
about
course.
this.
Well, yeah, I think it's people are worried about people getting in their personal business. And as you started your potluck saying that you agree that most of the time government shouldn't be in our business, but when it comes to public health, it's one of the areas where politicians don't matter. We want to hear from doctors.
And public
Thank you.
health, by the way, includes Obamacare. I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
I'm just saying that you guys.
Are we going
Just
to end it there?
Just saying.
I'm just saying that you guys match, which
do.
is
You
quite
like that? We,
remarkable.
we
The
got
whole
dressed.
purple
Exactly.
thing that
I took
we
a
got
yard
going
of my
on.
dress,
purple.
made
She
his
made
tie.
Shades of
my
purple.
tie. Yeah.
Very
Coordinated.
good. Well, this will be quite a segue. My potluck for this evening is all about gamblers forced to return their winnings. This is incredible. A New Jersey judge just ruled just yesterday, I believe, that $1.5 million that were won by 14 gamblers in Atlantic City, they got to give it back. I've never heard of anything like this before. But here's what happened. They're playing a game where cards are being shuffled, baccarat, I believe. Yep. And as a result, right, it was at the Golden Nugget in Atlantic City, apparently the cards weren't shuffled. So the casino noticed that the cards weren't shuffled and then said, okay, you guys got to give this back. And the gambler's like, what are you, crazy? We just won fair and square. It's not our fault you forgot to shuffle the cards.
Right.
So sure enough, it goes to court, and the judge says, you know what? The rules are the cards have to be shuffled. It's illegal, and therefore all these people who I don't even know if they may have spent the money. I would have that night. Probably I would have. Have to give it back. Heather, you're a lawyer.
You know what? Here's the thing. When I first read the story, I agreed with you. It was ridiculous. But then I realized that the people who were gambling knew that they hadn't been shuffled and started increasing their bets because they knew it hadn't been.
I would do the same thing.
But Joe, if there was an open cash register at a store, would you reach in and start grabbing the money?
It's a completely different
How is it
scenario.
different? If you know that you're cheating and you're doing it on purpose, then I understand why they'd have to give it back. If it wasn't on purpose, then I'd say it's their money, they're free
What
and
about the
clear.
responsibility of the dealer, whoever was working there that night?
Well, it's the machine. Apparently, there's another lawsuit that goes on between the gambling institution and the machine as to whether or not it should have been shuffled. But I think that if you're the gambler and you're taking advantage of something that you know is wrong, you might have to give the money.
Final word, Rick, 10 seconds.
Actually, I started with you, but I'm going with Heather. She's right. If you knew you were cheating, then...
Well, Kelly, you're going to Atlantic City tomorrow night. I mean, do you have any trepidation around
I have a lot to do. I thought I was going to see 50 Shades of Grey.
That's tonight.
That's tonight, and then tomorrow Atlantic City.
Anyway, up next, it's time for the best segment on this show. It's called Yay or Nay. What crazy stories have we dug up for your enjoyment? Find out next. This is the Daily Wrap, and it's only on Newsmax TV from New York City.